Renewables were actually meeting 71% of demand. And that gap between the availability of renewables, so their potential, and what's actually dispatched, really comes from three main factors. The first is commercial factors, and look, that is the decision of renewable generators to curtail their output because prices are unattractive. Transmission line congestion is also a factor, and sometimes it's the need to keep our main power grid stable and secure. And it's minimising that third factor that has been the focus of AEMO's work over those years, and that is to ensure that AEMO's control rooms can maintain a secure power system while the market dispatches the least cost electrons regardless of their generation source. And so this is obviously a global challenge and has been the subject of an enormous amount of international collaboration between AEMO and our overseas peers. But because Australia is leading the world in aspects of our energy transition, AEMO is often at the forefront of some of these technical challenges. In Australia, rooftop solar systems are more common than backyard swimming pools. In 2021, Australia was already leading the world in installing rooftop solar. At the time, 2.5 million systems around the country. Today, there are more than 4 million. And the fundamental changes in our energy mix are driven as much by decisions around kitchen tables as they are around boardroom tables. And at the time, I described that as a stunning democratisation of power, and I still think that that is an apt term for today. The solar panel has become a symbol of Australian homeowners and business owners taking charge of their generation sources to lower their costs and ultimately to transition their grid. And while it is a true Aussie success story, it does come with some challenges. In the NEM, the addition of 21 gigawatts of generation was always going to disrupt a system with a peak demand of 36 gigawatts. The new generation source is the largest aggregate source of generation in the NEM. It has met more than 50% of demand for periods of time across the entire national electricity market, and it regularly provides more electricity than is needed for the entirety of South Australia. So harnessing sunshine has forever impacted the economics of our power systems. And it's the old coal-fired power stations that have been for decades the cornerstones of grid reliability that have really struggled the most with this influx of low cost and variable generation. And despite the historic benefits of thermal coal generation, and there are many, it is a technology that really struggles to be as flexible as its synchronous counterparts, gas and hydro. And that's particularly challenging for them when more than 20% of dispatch intervals across the national electricity market see negative pricing. So that means that generators are paying someone to take away their energy. And this has led to a complete paradigm shift. The power systems of yesterday were dominated by coal-fired power stations, always on and running at high levels of utilisation. That was the lowest cost energy at the time to meet the base load power needs of our population. And it was supplemented by the next more expensive peaking generation to meet the evening peaks of demand. And that lowest cost generation is obviously dispatched first, supplemented by the next least cost, and so on and so on. And today, that least cost generation is renewable energy, and it's dispatched first. And other types of generation are then needed to firm up that variable renewable energy. So the paradigm shift underway in our power system is from the economics of baseload and peaking to renewables and firming. And there is no going back. The ongoing shift in Australia's generation mix has made our power systems far more complex. By their very nature, the power systems of our parents' generation were much, much simpler. There were fewer generators, there were fewer owners, there were less engaged consumers. And so look, as I stand here today, I can't help but think about what has changed since last I was at a CEDA event in 21. And my observations would be threefold. The first is that the pace of the transition is not linear. It is lumpy. and has points of inflection or transition that will definitely challenge us. The second would be that collaboration is absolutely critical, particularly at those transition points, as has been demonstrated. And the third really is that energy is the backbone of modern society, and there is a strong expectation that this energy transition is just, it's fair, it's least cost, and always ensures a secure and reliable supply of electricity to homes and businesses at every point. So from AEMO, we are absolutely committed to working collaboratively with industry, with governments and consumers to navigate every transition point. And I guess reflecting on where we've come since 2021, I'm absolutely confident as an industry and at AEMO that we have the capability that we need. We have a set of roadmaps that can navigate this energy transition, that they're dynamic and get updated, and we have a mindset and a track record of acting in the best interests of Australian energy consumers. So we have seen great progress in the last 4 years, and I'm absolutely confident that the next 4 years will show the same. Thank you. And look, the ISP says that to get sufficient generation, renewables and firming, to meet the reliability needs, we need about 6 gigawatts of generation to be built every year. Historically, Australia in the NEM has built between 3 and 4 gigawatts of generation, so a real uplift needed. So what's really positive at the moment is that I think probably about a year ago, what we started seeing was the pipeline of generation that goes through the process of, well, we call it connecting to the grid, but it's obviously an investment decision, it's construction of these assets and commissioning. There is a lot that's in that pipeline, and we were starting to see it really pull through. So if I pick 3 stages of the pipeline, there's kind of like very early, let's call it middle and end, right? About last year, we saw 12 gigawatts of generation pass through that first stage, which is fantastic. That's obviously double 6, isn't it? But it takes time to work through, and through those next stages, actually projects weren't yet getting built and commissioned. So the actual output was quite low. This year, what we're seeing is those projects are coming through. So actually that second stage, which was about 2.5 gigawatts last year, is now already 7 gigawatts in that second stage. And so what we're seeing is this big pile of projects, some of that is driven by the CIS and others that are really coming through the pipeline. We're not yet seeing it like fully commissioned and full output to the grid yet, but it's absolutely coming through. What's good is obviously that flow rate is seeming to continue. So that first stage of application, this year again we're seeing probably around about 12 gigawatts of generation will also be registered, go through the application process this year. So it's encouraging, and we need those projects obviously to come through and be connected to the grid.
Yeah, no, that is encouraging that it's coming through the pipeline, because we did see previously not such a strong pipeline, but a lot coming through in terms of rooftop solar. So you mentioned now 21 gigawatts of rooftop solar, which is a brilliant opportunity, but also raises some challenges, as you mentioned. How are you working through sort of better using the opportunities from our really strong rooftop solar?
Yeah, and let me be clear, rooftop solar is such a success story of Australia. It is absolutely consumers really changing the energy landscape and kind of voting with their feet, right? I mentioned sometimes that it does cause us some challenges, right? Because it's the energy system wasn't designed and built in a way that it operates today with these two-way flows, and this is absolutely a good thing. But we have to navigate some of the challenges. We have pointed before on a number of occasions to the real value that all Australians can get if some of that behind the meter resource, so whether it's solar or batteries in people's homes or electric vehicles, if the value that can be unlocked for everyone if those assets respond to the market. And so in doing that, there's 2 elements, I would say. One is like the technical elements of have the right standards and protocols and data sharing and all that sort of stuff. I've got to say, I think that's going going well. These things, there's a roadmap that the government is implementing. That's going well. Probably the bit that's not quite as strong is like, what's the real value proposition to consumers for these assets to be orchestrated and provide value back to the grid? And so I think, I know retailers are working hard on developing those value propositions and allowing consumers to benefit, but we're yet to see a huge uptake there.
Yep, but watch this space, I guess.
Definitely.
Excellent. I'm getting the indication that we're out of time.
Yeah, the flashing red says we're out of time.
Exactly,
right?
it's pretty clear. There's a lot more questions I could ask, so thank you very much, Daniel.
Welcome.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.